Everyone laughed at him. A man who'd lost his fortune, adopting a little girl selling paper foxes on the street. But what no one knew was that her mind was sharp enough to take down billion-dollar systems. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this one. David Grayson used to be at the top. One of those towering financial buildings that scraped the sky used to bear his name. But now, from a modest apartment window that replaced his former grand office on the 52nd floor, he stared at the Chicago skyline, hearing nothing but echoes of the past. He slowly swirled the last of his expensive whiskey, watching the amber liquid dance in the crystal glass. His company, his wealth, his reputation, all reduced to ashes within 6 weeks thanks to Victor Blackwood's perfectly executed betrayal. 30 years of friendship, gone with one stock market move. Empire builders. He muttered to himself, the name bouncing off the empty walls like a cruel joke. Then he downed the whiskey in one go, welcoming the burn in his throat like an old friend. The doctor's words from that morning still echoed in his ears. Your blood pressure is dangerously high, Mr. Grayson. This stress is killing you. David sighed. Of course it was. Watching your entire life evaporate before your eyes would kill anyone slowly. He glanced at his reflection, graying hair, pale skin, lines carved deep into his face. Years of ruthless competition and personal sacrifice had left him a tired man. His finest suits gathered dust in the corner of the wardrobe. All he wore now was a worn-out sweater and loose slacks. What legacy did I really leave behind? He asked himself. A few buildings, a few digits, and nameplates that would be changed again soon enough? The next morning, David did something different. Instead of locking himself in those 4 walls, he decided to step outside and face the real world again. What he didn't know was how that decision would change his life forever. As rain beat down on the city streets, he walked aimlessly, feeling a hollow kind of ache inside. Droplets running from his wet hair masked the tears he didn't want anyone to see. Then he noticed her, a little girl, maybe 8 years old, crouched outside what used to be a bookstore. She wore an old coat and sat on a flattened piece of cardboard. But what stood out the most were the colorful origami animals lined up in front of her. David almost walked right past her until she looked up. Their eyes met, and in that moment, he saw something. Those eyes, so small, yet carrying the weight of 1,000 worlds. Sharp, observant, and strangely wise. Would you like to buy one, sir? She asked, her voice calm and surprisingly mature. $1 each. If you keep them dry, they last forever. David crouched without thinking. You made these yourself? I did, she said proudly. The swan was the hardest, but the fox is my favorite. David picked up a tiny fox. The folds were intricate, precise. My name's David. What's yours? Amelia, she replied calmly. And where are your parents, Amelia? He asked, carefully. My grandma's in the hospital. I'm handling things until she gets better. Her eyes flickered with a hint of uncertainty, but only for a second. David noticed 2 men watching from across the street. An old instinct stirred in him, something protective, fierce. How much for all of them? He asked suddenly. $23. Amelia replied without hesitation. I made 23 today. David pulled out 2 20s. Keep the change. You're probably hungry. Want to grab something to eat? Amelia hesitated, then gave a small nod, carefully packing up her cardboard and origami animals into a little backpack. They went to a nearby cafe. David watched her devour the sandwich while still observing every detail around her with quiet intensity. What really caught his eye, though, was the napkin beside her filled with scribbles. But they weren't doodles. They looked like advanced math. What are you working on? David asked. Just numbers, she said quickly, folding the napkin. They help me think. And in that moment, something inside David Grayson shifted. This little girl wasn't just surviving, she was trying to make sense of the world with a mind far beyond her years. By the end of the day, David made another decision. He wouldn't let her sleep on the streets that night. There's a sofa in my office, he offered. You can crash there for now, just temporarily. Amelia looked at him. Why are you helping me? Most people just walk by. Because. David paused. Sometimes, to believe in the world again, you need a reason. And I'm looking for one. That night, as Amelia curled up on the office couch, holding her backpack tight, David stood in the doorway watching her sleep. And that's when he realized this wasn't just a story of loss anymore. It was also a story of hope. The next morning, David called Rebecca Hartman from social services. Once known for loudly criticizing corporate policies that turned a blind eye to social responsibility, Rebecca now found herself face-to-face with a very different version of David Grayson. "This is highly unusual, Mr. Grayson," she said, standing in the corner of his kitchen. "In cases like this, I'm required to place the child in temporary protective custody immediately." "I understand," David replied calmly. "But her grandmother is in the hospital. This is just temporary." Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "I never expected this kind of approach from you." "I didn't expect it from myself either," David said with a faint smile. Rebecca sat down with Amelia for a private conversation. The girl told her everything honestly and without fear. Her grandmother had suffered a stroke 3 weeks ago. She had no other family. Amelia had chosen to survive on the streets rather than be thrown into the system. "This girl is extraordinary," Rebecca said later to David. "But the system demands procedure. And this procedure hasn't been kind to her." "It's clear the system failed her," David replied. "I want temporary guardianship, at least until her grandmother recovers." 2 days later, David and Amelia were in family court. When Judge Bauer saw the once famous financial tycoon standing before him, he squinted slightly in surprise. "Mr. Grayson, you're requesting temporary custody of a child you've only just met. What's your reasoning?" David felt Amelia's hand in his. The little girl had wrapped her fingers tightly around his, and that small gesture of trust hit him harder than he expected. "Your Honor," David said, clearing his throat, "I'd like to amend my petition. I want to adopt Amelia permanently." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Rebecca dropped her file in shock. "Mr. Grayson," the judge began, clearly taken aback, "given everything you've recently gone through, what exactly can you offer a child?" David looked down at Amelia, then back at the judge. "A second chance, Your Honor. For both of us." When they left the courthouse with temporary approval, Amelia looked up at him and said, "You didn't have to do that." "I know," David replied. "But sometimes, it's the decisions we don't plan that end up saving us." The first few weeks were a test for both of them. For David, just making breakfast after a lifetime of private chefs was a challenge in itself. Reading recipes, doing laundry, it all felt like stepping into a completely new world. One morning, as he stood in front of the fridge mumbling, "What even is breakfast, really?" Amelia quietly walked over and took out the carton of eggs. "I can make scrambled eggs," she said. "My grandma taught me." David was amazed by how capable and independent she was for someone so young. But it also broke his heart a little. "You don't need to cook," he said gently. "Well, now it's my job," Amelia replied simply. "Everyone does what they can." That same day, David signed up for a cooking class. He also started doing regular grocery shopping, something he hadn't done in years. But school brought a whole new kind of challenge. Amelia's assessment tests stunned the school board. They bumped her up 2 grades, but even then, she seemed bored. One evening, David got a call from school. "Mr. Grayson, this is Ms. Winters, Amelia's math teacher. We need to talk about her behavior." "What happened?" David asked, concerned. "She corrected her teacher during class and insisted on a different method. It was disruptive." David was frustrated until he looked at Amelia's notebooks that night. Her method wasn't just correct. It was brilliant. "You're right," he told her. "But sometimes, being right isn't enough. We need to work on how you explain it." Amelia looked down. "But her way takes 14 extra steps on complex problems," she muttered. There were other challenges, too. Nightmares. The first night, David didn't know what to do. By the third night, he simply sat beside her bed, quietly keeping watch. Over time, she began to sleep more peacefully. One morning, while changing her bedsheets, David found food hidden under the mattress: crackers, apples, granola bars. "There will always be food in this house," he said softly. Amelia nodded. But the following week, he noticed she'd hidden snacks elsewhere. Trust didn't come from words alone. 6 weeks later, David got another call from the school. This time, it was the principal. "Mr. Grayson, Amelia's assessments. They're unlike anything we've ever seen. She's operating at a university level in mathematics." David wasn't surprised. He had sensed it. But this was something else entirely. That evening, he gently pushed open Amelia's door. She was buried in a college-level textbook, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked softly. "I didn't want to be different," Amelia said without looking up. "I'm already different enough. Being different isn't a bad thing." "It was on the streets," she replied. If people notice you, you become a target. Later that night, David found the notebooks she had hidden under her bed. Advanced algorithms, market analysis. She had built statistical models just to survive. You even picked your street corner based on foot traffic patterns, David said, flipping through the pages in awe. Amelia smiled slightly. The Fox algorithm was my most efficient one. That's when an idea started to form in David's mind. This brilliance. It couldn't be wasted just surviving. Then, as if on cue, an invitation arrived. A charity gala hosted by Margaret Shun, an old acquaintance from his corporate days. That night, David and Amelia walked into the ballroom together. He in a sharp suit, she in a brand new dress. Hand in hand. There were whispers, stares, but David didn't care. Not until Victor Blackwood swaggered over to their table, smirking. Handing out charity now, David, he sneered. Then, of course, he couldn't help but bring up his latest algorithm, bragging about it as if no one in the room could possibly understand it. But then, Amelia spoke up. Your model's wrong, she said clearly. It doesn't account for compound effects in hybrid markets. Blackwood froze. The people at the table went silent, eyes down. Then, an older fund manager leaned in curiously. Young lady, could you show me what you mean? Amelia picked up a napkin and quickly scribbled a complex equation. The man pulled out his glasses, examined it closely. Incredible. Victor, she's right. That night, David realized something powerful. This little girl didn't just understand the kind of algorithm that had once crashed fortunes. She was capable of improving it. And Victor Blackwood knew it. Which meant danger was coming. David and Amelia were no longer just father and daughter. They were now two brilliant minds working side by side. David painted his office blue. Amelia's room, a warm yellow. One corner became a display of origami animals. The bookshelves, filled with university-level textbooks. Then, one night, David caught Amelia typing code on his old computer. What are you doing? He asked. I've been analyzing your old company's collapse, she said calmly. There was an imbalance in the numbers. David stepped closer. Her algorithm was exposing hidden transactions, traces of fraud. Blackwood, David muttered. He hid the money, Amelia explained. But he used a time trigger to bring it back. And just like that, their mission became clear. Project Phoenix was born, but danger was already closing in. Rebecca, the social worker, wasn't who she seemed. She had been reporting to Blackwood all along. She had even planted hidden cameras in the house. That night, David and Amelia had to disappear. Codename, Contingency 4. Their safe house, a hidden apartment above an old bookstore. During the 3 weeks they were apart, Amelia kept coding. Even when David was briefly hospitalized, she stayed calm. Her secret message posted on a private forum simply read, 87%. Don't worry, we're okay. When they finally reunited, Amelia's algorithm was complete. Money laundering, fake transactions, secret transfers, everything was documented and verified. That's when Blackwood made his move. A $4.7 billion offer. Half is yours. Just stay quiet. But David and Amelia didn't stay quiet. They released everything to the public. The press, regulators, law enforcement, even the FBI sprung into action. And Sophia's algorithm? It became a global security protocol. And that tiny paper fox? It now sits in a glass case in the lobby of the Reynolds Foundation. If you hadn't noticed me that day, Amelia said quietly outside the building. David placed a hand on her shoulder. I thought I was saving you, but you're the one who saved me. Because real wealth is found in a mind, in a heart, and in the quiet hope that rises when you least expect it. A year ago, he was alone. He had lost his fortune, his reputation, his entire life. That day, he thought he was just buying a paper fox. But in truth, he met a mind that could change the world, a heart that could heal his own, and a family he never knew he needed. And on that day, he finally understood. Real wealth isn't in bank accounts. It lives where two hearts begin to heal. Together. If this story touched your heart, if the journey of a man finding a second chance and a girl changing the world with her mind inspired you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. We're here every week with a new story and a new spark of hope.